All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into IShowSpeed. You sent over his interview from that Club Shay YouTube channel.
Hmm.
And I got to say, this kid is fascinating. I mean, he's already a huge name online. But now he's saying he wants to be like a world-class athlete, too.
It's ambitious,
Yeah.
to say the least. This interview, it definitely gives us a glimpse into that drive of his and, that larger-than-life personality. But it brings up some interesting questions, like where does all this confidence come from? And is there more to it than we see on the surface?
Okay, so let's break this down. He started streaming Fortnite during COVID. I mean, pretty typical why-by.
But then his mom kicks him out for it. Talk about dedication.
Yeah, it's definitely not your typical teenage rebellion story.
No.
You got to wonder if that early clash kind of fueled his determination, to prove himself, not just to his mom,
Hey.
but to the world, too.
And he does prove himself. He becomes a millionaire at 16. 16. That kind of money at that age, it could really mess you up. But he seems pretty grounded, wouldn't you say? Yeah, there's a certain detachment from material wealth that's really striking. He talks about buying his mom a house, helping people out. It's not the typical, look at all my riches attitude that you often see with, young influencers.
He even mentions he bought this $50,000 chain that he never wears. What's the point of that?
Yeah, it suggests his values lie elsewhere. Maybe it's more about the impact he can have, the experiences, rather than just accumulating all this stuff.
Right, and then there's that whole Ronaldo obsession.
Yeah.
This guy's got the Ronaldo Lamborghini, a Ronaldo tattoo. It's next level.
Yeah. It's more than just being a fan, though. He's so invested in that Ronaldo versus Messi debate, to the point where he even puts money on it with Shannon Sharp. There's real passion there.
He gets emotional talking about meeting Ronaldo. He calls it the best day of his life.
It's interesting. I mean, he's achieved so much online, millions of viewers, but this personal connection with his idol, it clearly means more to him. It makes you think about how we all define success differently.
Yeah. But this is where things get really interesting. IShowSpeed doesn't just want to be a fan. He wants to be an athlete on par with these guys.
Yeah.
He actually says he can beat Tyreek Hill. Noah Lyles, he even raced Lyles.
And lost, of course. But he still maintains that with the right training. He could be a contender. It really makes you wonder, is this genuine belief? Or is it some carefully crafted persona?
He talks about training for the 2028 Olympics.
Yeah.
Going pro in track, even claims he was a 4-star football recruit.
Yeah, and while his drive's undeniable, Olympic-level success, it demands an incredible amount of dedication and, frankly, a bit of luck.
Yep.
To achieve that, starting so late in the game, well, the odds are definitely stacked against him.
And then there's basketball. He says he could take on Kevin Durant, Bronny James, anyone. Is this kid for real?
It's a bold claim, especially considering he doesn't really have a background in organized basketball. You have to wonder if it's partly about challenging those expectations, proving all the doubters wrong.
And he's not afraid to call people out either. He even mentions wanting to box Jake Paul. Though he did say he'd prefer to start with someone his own size Floyd.
Right. And there's that story about him sparring with Manny Pacquiao and taking a body shot even after that. He says he could have given Pacquiao some work if he was serious. It's classic IShowSpeed. Always up for a challenge, never backing down.
He compares his global popularity to the Beatles. Talks about fans mobbing him in Indonesia, jumping on his car, even trying to pull his pants down.
It's a different kind of fame than the Beatles experience. The intensity might be comparable, but the way it manifests in the digital age, it's unique. It's more immediate, more intrusive, and potentially even more fleeting.
And get this, he can speak 8 languages. Apparently, he learned a lot of them just by listening to music.
That really speaks to a natural curiosity and an ear for language. It also highlights how powerful music is, to transcend borders and connect people in ways we might not always recognize. It's a reminder that learning can happen outside of traditional classrooms.
But for all the bravado, he does seem to have his head on straight. He talks about how important family is to him, how supportive his parents are.
It seems like that early friction with his mom, it actually pushed him to prove himself, and now they have a great relationship.
Yeah, it's kind of like a classic underdog story, right?
Yeah.
Kid defies the odds, achieves success, and even wins over his toughest critic.
Perhaps. But there's also a privileged aspect to his narrative, too. Not every underdog becomes millionaire at 16. It's an interesting tension to explore, this young man. He's achieved incredible success at such a young age, and it makes you wonder, how has that shaped his outlook?
He does seem remarkably grounded, though. especially when you consider how much he's already accomplished.
Yeah,
We'll
what's fascinating is that his attitude towards wealth is almost nonchalant. He's not flashing expensive cars or jewelry. He's talking about helping people in need, carrying cash to give away.
Yeah. Remember when he said he'd rather use his money to make people happy than to elevate his own status? It's a refreshing perspective, especially in a world that often equates wealth with worth.
It makes you think about, like, what's his philosophy on success? Maybe it's not just about reaching the top, but also about bringing others up with you.
He does talk about wanting to, like, perfect the game of streaming, not just be successful himself, but elevate the whole industry. It's like he wants to leave a mark, not just make a buck.
And he clearly admires other creators who are pushing those boundaries, like Mr. Beast. He even mentioned getting advice from him early on.
It's interesting how he gravitates towards these individuals who share that drive and ambition, whether it's Mr. Beast in the content creation world or Ronaldo in athletics. It's like they fuel each other's fire.
And that competitive spirit, it definitely comes through when he talks about his athletic aspirations. He genuinely believes that he could compete at a professional level. Despite his lack of formal training, he even breaks down the differences between American and European football in a surprisingly insightful way.
Yeah, he said. American football requires less inherent skill, but a lot of dedication to make it to the NFL, while European football demands a higher level of skill, developed from a young age.
It shows that he's thought about this, even if it's all hypothetical at this point. He's not just blindly saying he's the best. He's acknowledging those nuances of each sport.
He's pretty self-aware too.
Yeah.
Admits he lacks formal training, but emphasizes his raw athleticism and natural talent.
He almost seems to enjoy the challenge of proving himself in areas where he's considered an underdog. And let's be honest, he's no stranger to controversy himself. He even alluded to an incident in the past, admitting his was worse.
Right. It's a reminder that he's
Yeah.
not just this larger-than-life personality. He's a young man who's made mistakes and is trying to learn from them.
It's interesting how he navigates that delicate balance between authenticity and accountability, especially in the age of social media, where everything is amplified.
He could even joke about it with Shannon Sharp, which suggests a level of self-awareness and a willingness to address his flaws. But it's not all controversy and competition. There's a real sense of wonder when he talks about traveling the world and experiencing different cultures.
He describes his travels with a genuine excitement and openness to new experiences that's refreshing to hear. He's not just checking off destinations. He's engaging with the world around him.
Yeah, and let's not forget about his ability to speak 8 languages.
Oh.
Who knew listening to music could be such an effective language learning tool? It's a testament to his curiosity and his willingness to learn in unconventional ways.
It makes you wonder, what truly motivates him? Is it fame, fortune, athletic glory?
He does claim to be the Ronaldo of streaming, which shows his competitive drive
Yeah.
and that desire to be the best.
He also emphasizes the importance of staying true to himself, making people happy, and using his platform for good.
Like when he talked about sending money to those in need or raising awareness for important causes.
There's a sense that he wants to make a positive impact, which is admirable, especially given his young age.
But let's not forget, he's still only 19.
Which raises the question, how will he evolve as he matures and his priorities shift?
Will he continue to push boundaries and defy expectations?
Will he find new ways to leverage his influence and make a lasting impact?
Only time will tell. Yeah, it's kind of like a classic underdog story, right?
Right.
Kid defies the odds, achieves success, and even wins over his toughest critic.
Yeah, perhaps. But there's also kind of a privileged aspect to his narrative, too. Not every underdog becomes a millionaire at 16. It's an interesting tension.
He does seem remarkably grounded, though, especially when you consider everything he's already done.
Yeah. What I find fascinating is it's almost like he has this nonchalant attitude towards wealth. He's not flashing expensive cars or jewelry. He talks about helping people in need,
Yeah.
carrying cash to give away.
Right. Remember that part where he said that he'd rather use his money to make people happy than to elevate his own status?
Uh-huh.
It's a pretty refreshing perspective, especially in a world that often equates wealth with worth.
Yeah. It really makes you think about his philosophy on success. Like maybe it's not just about reaching the top, but also about bringing other people up with you.
He does talk about wanting to,
Wow.
like, perfect the game of streaming, and not just be successful himself, but also elevate the whole industry. It's like he wants to leave a mark, not just make a buck.
Yeah. And he clearly admires other creators who are pushing those boundaries, like Mr. Beast. He
Yeah.
even mentioned getting advice from him early on.
It's interesting. He seems to gravitate towards these individuals
Mm.
who share that same drive and ambition, whether it's Mr. Beast in the content creation world
Mm.
or Ronaldo in athletics.
It's like they fuel each other's fire and that
Yeah.
competitive spirit. It really comes through when he talks about his athletic aspirations. I mean, he genuinely believes he could compete at a professional level,
Yeah.
even with his lack of formal training. And here, he even breaks down the differences between American and European football in a surprisingly insightful way.
Yeah, he said. American football requires less inherent skill, but a lot of dedication to make it to the NFL, while European football demands a higher level of skill, developed from a young age.
Exactly. It shows that he's actually put some thought into this, even if it's all hypothetical at this point. He's not just blindly saying he's the best. He's acknowledging the nuances of each sport.
He's also pretty self-aware, admits he lacks formal training,
Yeah.
but emphasizes his raw athleticism and natural talent.
Yeah, he almost seems to enjoy the challenge of proving himself in areas where people consider him an underdog. But let's be honest, he's no stranger to controversy himself. He even alluded to an incident in the past, saying his was worse.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that he's not just this larger-than-life persona. He's also a young man who's made mistakes and is trying to learn from them.
Right. It's interesting how he navigates that balance between authenticity and accountability, especially in the age of social media, where every little thing gets amplified.
He could even joke about it with Shannon Sharp, which I think shows a level of self-awareness and a willingness to address his flaws. But it's not all controversy and competition. There's also a real sense of wonder when he talks about traveling the world and experiencing different cultures.
He describes his travels with, like, this genuine excitement, an openness to new experiences that's really refreshing to hear. He's not just checking off destinations on a list. He's really engaging with the world around him.
Yeah, and let's not forget about that whole 8 languages thing.
Yeah.
Who knew listening to music could be such an effective language learning tool?
It really speaks to his curiosity and his willingness to learn in unconventional ways. It makes you wonder, what really motivates him? Is it fame, fortune, maybe athletic glory?
Well, he does call himself the Ronaldo of streaming, which shows his competitive drive and that desire to be the best.
True, but he also emphasizes how important it is to stay true to himself, make people happy, and to use his platform for good.
Like when he talked about sending money to people in need or raising awareness for important causes.
Yeah, there's definitely a sense that he wants to make a positive impact, which is admirable, especially for someone his age.
Still only 19.
Which leads to the question, how will he evolve as he matures and his priorities shift?
Will he continue to push those boundaries and defy expectations?
Will he find new ways to leverage his influence and make a lasting impact?
I guess only time will tell. It's pretty wild to think about how much he's done already. And he's not even 20 yet. It's like we're watching a superhero origin story. But instead of superpowers, he's got this crazy drive and like an unshakable belief in himself.
It makes you wonder what's next for him. What happens when you achieve so much so young?
Right. Will he branch out beyond streaming, maybe become a philanthropist, or actually start training for the Olympics, like he keeps saying he will?
Imagine IShowSpeed winning Olympic gold after everyone doubted him. Now that would be a story.
The headlines would be insane. From streamer to sprinter, IShowSpeed makes history.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe we're getting a little ahead of ourselves.
True. But even if he never wins a medal, his impact is undeniable. He's inspired so many people to embrace their individuality and chase their dreams, no matter how crazy they might seem.
And he's done it all while being himself.
Yeah.
Which honestly might be the most impressive thing. He's incredibly open about his experiences, even the awkward or controversial stuff.
Yeah. He doesn't shy away from tough conversations, like addressing his past mistakes or talking about the pressures of fame. He even mentioned the challenges of maintaining privacy. When you're a global icon, you know, constantly in the spotlight.
That's a side of fame we don't often hear about. The constant scrutiny, the lack of privacy. It's got to be a lot to deal with, especially for someone so young.
IShowSpeed seems to handle it all with a mix of humor and humility. He doesn't take himself too seriously, and I think that makes him even more relatable.
He's not afraid to show his vulnerability,
Yeah.
and that seems to resonate with his audience. They see him as a real person, flaws and all.
Yeah, it's refreshing. In a world of perfectly curated social media, he's out there just being himself, and people love him for it.
He's a complex guy, that's for sure. But at the end of the day, he's just a young man trying to figure things out, just like all of us. Except he's doing it on a global stage, with millions of people watching.
It's what makes his story so compelling. It reminds us that life is unpredictable, and that anything is possible, if you're willing to take risks
Mhm.
and believe in yourself.
So what does all this mean for you? Maybe it's a reminder to embrace those quirks and chase those dreams, no matter how crazy they might seem.
Maybe it's a challenge to rethink your definition of success. Does it have to look a certain way? Or can it be about finding your own path, making a difference, and living a life that's true to you?
Whatever you take away from this deep dive, we hope it sparks some interesting thoughts and maybe even a little inspiration. IShowSpeed's story shows the power of belief, the ups and downs of fame, and the potential that we all have inside us.
Until next time, keep diving deep, keep questioning everything, and never be afraid to dream big.